first feature that we're going to consider is being able to create a brand new instance, right? So we already have the service on the server. We have the service in the middle on the client side. We just need to call it. Right? We need to be able to first have a user interface that will allow us to capture the new instance of the object that we want to send over to the server. So to do that, we're going to add a new object instance in the state, in our local state, in a component state variable, and it's going to have an initial value of this object with a job title, an empty job title, no ID. It's just going to be empty, right? So it's a dummy placeholder. And what we're going to do is that as we type, we're going to have an input field that as we type, right, it's going to invoke this update form, an update form that we're going to pass also an event that's going to keep track of every single keystroke that we make, right? And in the update form, we're just going to update that quote object, right? That we stored in the state. We're just going to update it with a new value that we just typed, right? So we're grabbing it from the event that came from our keystrokes. The target being the input field and the value of the current value of that input field, and that's what we take as the job title in this case. Also, if this quote was a quote that we were editing, if we're editing, that means that it'll have an ID. Okay. If it's a brand new quote, then the ID will be undefined. But if this is this is from a previous quote that we're editing because we selected because we're going to edit it, there will be an ID. So here we just copy it, even if it's undefined at first, right? It might have an actual value if it's something that we're editing. So we're copying it over from the previous state. All right, so between these two, this input field and this update form, we're just keeping track of the latest item, right? That we can either create or update, right? If we want to create it, here's a create function that we're gonna have a button that if we click on that button, is going to invoke the create quote, the create function. The create function, what it does is that it's going to use a service. Take the service. Hey service, you have a function create, right? That if I give you an instance, you're going to do a post, right, to a server. Yes, that's what you're going to do. So I'm going to give you the object which lives in the state, right? My state object. There it is. That state that quote. Right? When you come back and it was successful and you inserted it, I'm going to ask for all the instances again so that I can re-update my user interface, right, so that it includes everything including what I just updated. Obviously, this find all might be a little bit too much. You'll have to implement it in such a way that will take into account any filtering that you might already have, any pagination that you might already have, right? So this find all is going to be much more complicated. Right, because you're going to have paginations and how many per page. Maybe the one you just inserted is right off the page, so it doesn't show right away, right? Maybe it's at the end of the page. Also, you might have some filterings as well that this find all might need to take into account, right?